PVP approach, which I call it productionizable, viable product. So
Right.
what I say that what I advocate into that approach is that technology is so mature right now. You don't for a new because AI everything is new after every 3 months. It's a test and trial. You do R
Yeah.
and D. What I'm advocating is spin directly go into production environment.
Right.
In one environment directly go into production because when we talk about dev UAT in production, we are talking about backend network zones. So
Right.
I'm saying don't stay inside the development for data and AI product because when you go in development, it's a cheap solution hardware, low performance hardware. Then you go to UAT production. The moment you swap different environments and you go into production, whole performance goes. The real-time
Right.
data comes, everything. So I advocate that start with production. I'm not saying release it. I'm saying do the development in production servers, just one
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
3 or 4 weeks. The moment it's successful, release it and immediately spin dev and UAT. So any CR should come. So that's a part. I'm just bragging my approach. But now the question comes: AI, right?
Yeah.
We all know that last time we used to call it data mining. Then we started calling it data science. Now we started calling it AI. All are same things.
Yeah.
Now behind AI, there's a traditional data science work, which is machine learning model.
Yeah.
And there is Gen AI, which is mostly LLM. People nowadays think that AI is only LLM.
Right.
How do you see that since product life cycles are going to shrink so quickly,
Yeah.
business expectation is you throw everything into LLM, no need for rest
Yeah.
of the all those things.
Yeah.
How that we have to be careful about those angles of AI.
Yeah. No. Wow. That's a great question. Quite a lot to unpack. So it's really interesting. So the way I think about it is that data science is at the top of that tree. Data science is the practice of solving business problems algorithmically with data. Go and understand the business problem, look at the data, see what's come up with a hypothesis, look at the data, see what's happening, and then use the right tool for the job or bunch of tools, algorithm models to actually solve the problem. And there's a whole class of them. Like I said, from it's a classic ML, from logistic regression, clustering, even naive Bayes. We did a machine learning model the other day. We just used TDIF, just for doing entity resolution, deep learning, and also transformer based, which is again another tool for using for data science. You're absolutely right. We talked about Hadoop. There's echoes of that. Put everything in the lake and some magic will happen. Stick it in the LLM in one model, and then the magic will happen. And it doesn't help, obviously, the big tech, Grok and OpenAI and what have you, trying to do the one model to rule them all. Which so every use case on them. I mean, obviously multiple models under the covers, but it looks like one model, right? That doesn't help. For us, it's a tool. Like I said, the credit model, credit process we talked about earlier, we use an LLM to generate the report. The report is really good at summarization. That's what transformers really, really excel at. Summarizing data, natural language. Obviously, they've been used for different things, but we use a classic AI model like a random forest to actually generate the credit score, and we glue them together in a process. So, but that's the data science approach. You're taking you're looking at a business problem and then working out the class of problem, looking at the data, seeing what the data's telling you, and then building the solutions based on what the class of problem is. And that could be a mix of things. Small language models, could be a large language model, it could be a mixture, it could be a graph model, it could be all sorts of things. That to me is the right way of looking at it. Whether we call it AI or machine learning or Fred, I don't really care. It's the process of data science is basically the umbrella for everything. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Now quantum AI also coming, right? That's another discussion, right? For another time.
Yes,
So,
indeed,
so
indeed.
we are already half our session. I think now let's jump onto as we are talking about decentralized for
Yeah,
businesses, and when we are talking about decentralized, so again, it's a shift from centralized to decentralized, and then maturity is a federated. When we say federated, then there's a centralized governance,
yeah,
which we are calling nowadays. I only came to know a couple of months back. I was a big advocate of that team, but the name just surfaced data practice management.
right.
Like when you have so many data products, there
Yeah,
has to be data owners, which is business, but there has to be a technical team who should know your whole footprint, blueprint, who
Yeah,
should know, okay, today you have implemented OpenAI, but suddenly DeepSeek came in and it's
yeah,
a tenfold cheaper solution for you. So someone technically has to tell business, hey, DeepSeek is good because someone came and told business that go in for DeepSeek, but this technology guy will say, hey, DeepSeek is very good, but these are the limitations. Because the moment you go into DeepSeek, who knows, after 2 weeks, they say there are a lot of bangs, so you have to come back. Right?
yes,
So this
yes,
team, tell us the importance of this team for businesses, because right now business is not understanding that. Business is
yeah.
saying every product can have its own team in a silo, and business owner is there. I am a big advocate of this middle ground of centralized team.
Yeah, yes. It's more like a sort of center of excellence, or it's more of that
Yeah,
kind of,
small
isn't
team,
it? So,
small team.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But like it's more almost like a consultancy that advises and enforces, and rather
Yes.
than actually delivery, right? It's
No. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and I yeah, and I've seen that work. I mean, I spent a lot of time on the transactional side of the fence, not the analytical side, and we used to have those in organizations. We'd have consultancy teams to actually come in and advise, but also to define the tech stacks and define the process for actually new technology coming in. I've seen it go horribly wrong where this process takes 6 months. And you have to go through architecture councils and all this sort of stuff, which the business just go, oh, and the business will always happen. It happens. They'll get some new shiny toy. They'll go to a conference, and someone will say, "Oh, this new shiny toy." And at the moment, it's AI. Before it was big data. Before that, I've done it with trading applications and all sorts of things. So you'll always get that. But again, the thing for me, there's two things: is you've got to basically do a cost benefit and really get the business thinking about that fundamentally. And that's quite hard sometimes, but it's really saying, here's, if you wanted to do that, we can do that, but here's the cost benefit and the risk around it. So, if you don't get your business could lose 10% if we get it wrong. And suddenly that sort of crystallizes the mind. Um, and also the other thing is, I think you picked it up, is, let's try it out. Let's have a really low friction, quick, low risk way of playing out. Like I said, spinning up a sandbox. Let's try it out with a business use case, end-to-end use case quickly in a couple of weeks. Do a spike, three or 4 weeks or something like that. We don't want a 6-month program spun up with lots of money to be thrown at it. It's that. And you need both of those. You need the kind of the getting the business to focus things on properly, because they're about running their business, right? That's what they're experts in. That's what they're paid to do. It's this kind of stuff. Yeah. IT and tech should be there to support. That's what we do. So we should, but in order to counteract that, you need to basically bring the conversation up to just shiny tech to actually really, let's make it a little mini business case that you understand that if we try and do this is the risk, this is the cost. Sometimes the business will just go, yeah, do it anyway. It's like, well, you bear the risk. But then you need that second bit, that it can't be a 12-month program. It's got to be fast, end to end, not just like technical POCs, but end to end business POC around that as well.
Yeah, see, that is where I see a big gap, that there are n number of technologies. Even you and I cannot name all the technologies which is there right now.
That's right.
So many, right? Yeah. DBT just came surface.
The mad landscape, right? Matt Turk's the mad landscape, right?
So this is one of a burning issue right now happening within the data world. Now let's touch base on business ownership and technical ownership, because this technical ownership we just touched base, right? So there, I'm a big fan of one-to-one relationship of business ownership with a product, but one-to-many relationships of one technical owner with a lot of products. So what do you think about these two ownerships?
Yeah, so ownership is a really interesting thing in organizations. Yeah. It's a tough thing. It's like, people talk about data ownership, and businesses don't own the data, or don't see they own the data like they own the car or the house or this kind of stuff. So it's, in my mind, it comes down to who pays for the business process. Where's the cost of profit center come from? Fundamentally, that's really where the ownership needs to lie. Now, whether businesses really think about it in that way or not is another matter. But that, to me, and everything that's basically paid for by that cost of profit center is the ownership of the business line that owns it. Fundamentally, that's I try and keep it really, really simple. It's like, so if there are products which are in there, I mean, same with IT, right? Classic IT. So there's a system that sits in a department that's run by that cost of profit center. There's an IT team generally owning that. they own that IT system. Same with products. If there's there's 5 metrics which have been deployed as data products inside sales, for instance, then sales have paid for it, so they technically own it. What it actually comes down to is if there need to be any changes, there needs to normally a bit of a bun fight, but actually who actually pays for it. Because that's really what it comes down to. Who pays to actually change it, build it, fix it, that type of stuff. And that's always a negotiation, fundamentally. How many times we've got parts of IT and data technology sitting in an organization that's 5 years old and it needs upgrading, but no one in that department wants to pay for it, right? Fundamentally. So there needs to be cost benefit analysis and a business case and that kind of stuff. So for me, it's the ownership is always about how the organization negotiates who pays for stuff. That's really what ownership's about, in my mind. Yeah, something needs to be fixed. Is there a is there a massive cost? Is there a risk? Like is there a regulatory fine associated with it? Is there are you losing money because of it, or are you can you not do this new we want to launch a new product in Asia? We can't do that because the capability isn't there and someone needs to pay for it. That's what it really always comes down to. And I always get caught in endless debates about governance and data governance and data ownership. It's like that's what it comes down to. How do you get the person who wants it? How do you get it paid for? And it's sometimes you're crowdsourcing, sometimes you're going to the CEO, sometimes you're going to the lines of business, sometimes you're coming out of IT budget. It's always a negotiation around that. And I think that's something that's quite lost in the in the kind of there's a theory, you should own that piece of data. It's like, well, it runs my business, so why do I care if I need to fix it? It's that, and it's always interesting in the AI world. And I post a lot about this when people say you've got to get your data foundations in place. It's like, well, we do data AI on really, really bad data and get quite good models. So, if the data needs to be fixed and I get an opportunity to make more money from this, then the cost of fixing it versus the making more money is the conversation to have. If it makes $1 million and it's going to cost $5 million to fix, that's an easy conversation to have. But if it's and it's that, to me, is really the kind of the conversations to have. But obviously people in the data and tech world, and I include myself, it's quite hard to have that conversation because you're not at the table at that level often.
So I think you brought another touch point, data quality. Because data quality will again surface like anything.
Yeah.
That would be some kind of a blocker in going towards decentralized and started, because data quality standards sometimes come from regulatory bodies. And there are risk teams sitting inside the organization. There are CDOs sitting in the organization who touch base directly with the regulatory, and they are more focused on quality rather than business outcome. So tell us about risk. For me, when you go toward a small data products, every product should have their own data quality standards, risk levels. You cannot have a standard data quality implementation for all the products. Doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
If a product is saving a life, yes, quality standard has to be very high. But if a product is just to sell some couple of ATM cards or some other things, quality can be less. So what do you think? How do you see this data quality making an impact in this world of decentralized?
So you're absolutely spot on. So I mean, I'm going to say something quite controversial. I don't like the term data quality, because data quality, it's like as a global standard for quality measuring. There isn't, right? I use the term data applicability. Is the data applicable for that use case? And it comes exactly what you're saying. So I want to use data for especially in the AI and the analytics world, which is always tends to be a secondary use case. It's rarely a primary one. The primary business runs on the data it runs on. There's the classic example of, we have one of our customers that's got 4 million of their own customers, and they've been around for like 80, 90 years. And they've got a lot of customers who are in their kind of 60s, 70s, and 80s. And when they joined 40 years ago, they didn't have a date of birth because it wasn't required. So there's about 10% of them have, don't have date of birth in their record, in their customer records. The main business runs fine with it, but obviously marketing want to go and segment those and try and market them and try and get them, upsell them, but they can't segment them because their date of births aren't there. Is that a data quality problem? No, it's not, because the main business that runs. So it's an applicability problem. So if the marketing want to try and get those populated, they've got to pay for it. Fundamentally, or find a way of paying for them. That means going out and getting surveys, people knocking on doors, potentially, all that sort of stuff, So it's an applicable problem. And the same in AI, AI and machine learning. You look at that, and I've had lots of machine learning projects fail fail because the data didn't have the right information because it wasn't captured, fundamentally. But you didn't know that until you actually looked at the data, fundamentally. So and that's I think that's a really key point. So you're absolutely right. Data products have to have their own data rules, their data validation rules, their own data quality rules. But it's specific to the use case of that data product. And if you want to change it, then you basically have to go and pay for the change in it, or you create a new one that's got a different data quality standard or data quality rules in it. But data quality is completely tied to the use case, the usage.
Absolutely. See, I categorize data quality into two categories.
Go on.
One is data standardization, and one is proper data quality. For me, data standardization is if data is in multiple formats, have to have the same format, because if you have multiple formats, we are in cloud, you go into a transformation, it will take high compute. If there is null values, remove it. If there are special characters, remove it. If there is a field which has all numbers, but string, its data type is string, convert into that. If a field has a static characters and it is varchar or string, convert into character. So all these standardizations, yes, I think it has to be across. It doesn't take a scientist to do that. You land a data, then you in staging layer you clean all this shit, right? You have a date, you have an address into one field, you divide into multiple postcode separate, unit separate. That's a standardization. You're not changing the granularity. Then comes the second piece. Now, second piece is very much dependent whatever you want. Now, standardization, we standardize all date has to be DDMMYY. But actual data quality is the person, if don't have a date of birth, that's an actual data quality issue. People mix first one with the second one as well.
Yeah. No, indeed. No, it's funny because I used to have a three levels. We had syntactic validation, which is what you're talking about. Are the dates in the right format, all that kind of stuff. Semantic validation, which is basically if we've got a record to a customer pointed to a customer record, is that record there? Is it duplicated? All that sort of stuff. And then business validation, which is basically tolerances and is the record complete for that particular business process. But it's quite similar to what you're talking about. So that first level syntactic validation, which is effectively the standardization piece. Are the dates all in the right format? Are the numbers in the format? Are the currencies and is that standard across the organization? I mean, there is also an interesting, talk about, agents in this as well, around how agents go and actually can determine a lot of this stuff. So you can give them data in different formats. I did this literally yesterday. We scraped some data from a website and I put it into Anthropic and it said create a CSV file. And it was all in different formats. So there's an interesting, movement happening around actually. And it sort of touches on data contracts and kind of these rigid kind of specifications. If AI, agentic or LLMs, that kind of stuff, actually cut through that, suddenly it's like, well, and if you can do 90% of that, then actually, because there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of effort in actually standardizing stuff across an organization, especially in the bigger the organization, the harder that gets, right? And it gets if you actually start to use AI to do a lot of that analysis and that integration and that kind of understanding, like I said, an agent going into a SAP database, for instance, maybe not SAP because it's really complicated, but like a simpler one, picking up the data it needs and then actually transforming it and executing the app to its goal, that starts moving the conversation on from, do we need to have teams negotiating data contracts between them? Is that actually a thing now, right?
Yeah, it's a perfect example of this is the right use of Gen AI.
Yeah.
If Gen AI data contracts and let it go and do the data standardization from source to landing or landing to staging, or Medallion is calling at bronze. So let them do it. It's a simple fix, right? Okay, going towards that, right?
But it's just on that, I was actually going higher up, which you're saying you don't need that bit. It's going getting data, bring it in, and then working out the actual business task that it needs to do. So it bypasses the staging and that kind of stuff. It doesn't need to do it because it can go to get direct to the system. Say he wants to book a holiday for you, for instance, a very simple agent, and it goes into 5 different systems, some on the web, going to Expedia or whatever, brings the data in, transforms it internally into it, and then says, "I'm going to turn that into a booking. I'm going to put the best one on this by the criteria," and then It books the holiday without having to go through all that kind of staging and that data contract area. You know what I mean? It's like actually go completely past it, which agents can do. You know, especially with the analysis bits. So that's coming. Well, I'll say it's coming. It's here. You see this all the time. I mean, these are obviously quite simple, but actually, you know,
Actually,
the world
okay.
could completely change, right?
It's a good debate, right? I just posted a few hours back on this one because when
Right.
they let agent go and talk to the structured database, I'm still not there. I don't see it's going to work. Reason being, converting NLP into a query, yeah, might be possible if you start maturing your metadata for your databases and
Mm-hmm.
tables and columns and everything. Yes, it
Yeah.
might end up creating a SQL query for you. But again, that's a one integration piece. But once the data comes out, now when
Mm-hmm.
LLM takes that data, can it takes the context out of it? I am on the other side of the table. It might
Right.
not be
Right.
a
Right.
good reason. I have a justification for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Then we have a time check of 10 minutes. I have a
Yeah.
justification. Without
Go
going
on.
into technicalities, I think LLM is based on transformer. Transformer is based on neural networks. Neural network come from the brain
Right.
networking, right? All those neurons. So that is
Yeah.
how they come up with this, right? Now, if you are from banking, I am from telco. If you talk in your lingo to me, I won't understand because I don't
Right.
understand your lingo
Yeah.
and keywords and all interoperability. If human and human can't make out the context, I doubt that LLM will be able to do it or anything will be able to do it until unless you end up spending so much money that your ROI won't meet. So, of course,
Yeah.
everything is doable, but ROI come into
Mm.
picture. You end up spending so much time into it, so much compete into it. That's what my
Indeed. Indeed.
concept.
But you're right. You're absolutely right. And again, it comes back to if you try and get one LLM to do all of that, you're
Yes,
absolutely right.
yeah,
But
that's
if
what I
you
mean.
break it down into little LLMs or
Small,
smaller
small pieces,
language
yes.
on an object graph. So you have one that's specifically geared towards doing the data transformation piece. You have one that specifically does the booking piece. And this is kind of what the agents do, right? They can use different LLMs
Agentic
to actually
AI.
do different parts of the puzzle. And you use small ones which are geared towards that. Suddenly, the world completely changes.
Yeah, that
You
I
know,
agree.
you actually,
That I absolutely agree. If you have agentic AI which is coming, you
yeah,
create small agents. Hey, you pick a piece from there and
yeah,
just do that piece. Yes, that is doable. But if you let LLM extract everything, put it into own tummy and make a
yeah,
context,
yeah,
I
yeah,
doubt
yeah,
that's going to happen. We have a time check of
exactly right.
8 minutes, but I want to touch base on privacy because
Yeah,
in
okay,
AI, privacy is a big issue right now.
yeah,
Unstructured
yeah,
world, within the vector, within the LLM, whatever you throw, everybody can see everything within the organization, of course, right? How do you see this privacy will become another big concern?
yeah. No, it's very interesting. I mean, what typically happens with, especially with with large models, is you see this all the time where you put data in and then there's a load of checks on data coming out because doing it inside the model, inside the weights is really difficult to almost impossible, right?
Yeah,
Because just the way that the tokens broken up and the dimensions happen.
yeah,
So typically what you have a bunch of checks on the way out, and you see this with OpenAI, and you can actually game it. You can actually get it to break its kind of programming effectively. So that's really is a band-aid fundamentally. So again, if you come back to kind of the this local models and deploying small language models locally, because it's a problem with the SaaS companies because they're it's completely
yeah,
with small language models, and you actually have like I'm going to upload my data through a RAG or whatever it is, to actually deploy that. You can compartmentalize, and you can have different ones with different security zones and all that kind of stuff. And again, if you break it down, rather than try and get every model to know everything about everything, then you can actually break it down into kind of small language models doing different pieces of the puzzle. All the models don't need to wear everything, and you can compartmentalize. So I'm a firm believer of actually decomposing it down into different models, having the data just required in that particular model, deploying it locally, either in your VM or your cloud. You get much more control over it. It's a bit more work to actually understand it, but it comes back to that data science process rather than just one, the answer's an LLM, what's the question? You're actually looking at business process transformation and technology to support that, and the right technology, the right place. So that's what we tend to do.
Yeah, I think that comes again towards the same basic thing: question, answers, action, and value. So if you already know what questions, you create a small silo LLM, whatever you want to create on your small within a container, and you throw only that data which can give you the answers of the questions you expect.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
End up creating a big one, because within the organization, even you cannot have one GenAI solution, because
Exactly right.
don't share data, marketing don't share data. Maybe marketing do share data, but audit, finance don't share data.
Of course, yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
So okay. Again, we have a time check of 5 minutes. I think it was a great session, John, and I think it should not be our last session. We need to have more sessions. I normally book people another session 6 months whenever we have a session. Maybe I will catch base with you, and we can plan another one in a couple of quarters. And I'm sure there'll be so many new things coming in. DeepSeek is here.
The world will be completely different by then, right?
Now another thing came in, right? TU 3 something. They came up with 405 billion parameters. These things keep coming in.
We might hit the trillion by that stage, right? You never know, right?
So, last message for our audience from your angle.
So well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on there. But like I said, using AI and using data products at the business process level, I think is the key. Decomposition, being able to deploy them, wherever you want, because we can do that on our platform, different clouds, but being able to actually then drive the business conversation and the end-to-end quickly, cheaply, and low risk with prototyping. That to me is the game-changing piece, fundamentally.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Have a nice rest of your day, and looking forward for our next session.
Take care. You too. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.